Ramdas, Richard Alpert, spent years in India studying Eastern philosophy and spirituality. And then later on, in the mid-70s, he returned to the United States. And of course, he was, everybody thought he was very enlightened, above everything. And he was invited to these many venues to give talks and speeches about his experience. And he always said, if you think you're enlightened, why don't you go spend a week with your family? People will listen to our experiences. They will listen to things that we have to share with them. But the family that we grow up in, for most of us, some of them will listen, but especially our parents, being older and us being always their children, their babies, they raised us, so they have always this authority telling us what to do, how to live our lives. And for most of us, we don't get heard, at least the way we want to be heard. Even though parents do not differentiate between their children, but usually there's one brother or sister that is the wise one and that always takes the correct decisions, is more successful, and the bottom line is we don't get heard. Each time we want to explain our side of the story, it doesn't matter if we are right. We just want to be heard. We just want to tell about our side. And most of the time, we never get the chance. We are not given the opportunity to be heard, to tell all our story. We do not receive the compassion to be heard, to tell our side of the story, the full story, and our feelings that go with it. We are usually cut off before we can finish, and usually we are reprimanded, we are told off, even sometimes being shouted at. And all those times we're not able to finish our side of the story, our version. We are shut down. We're not allowed to express what we have inside. And when that happens, we have to repress it or suppress it. The feeling of not being at least heard, at least if I could get it out to my mother, to my father, or be it your spouse, your siblings, at least being allowed to get what's inside of me, how I feel about it. If we can just get this out, if we could just be heard, it would definitely bring some relief. But we don't get to do that. And this continues. Even if we move away, we go back at Thanksgiving, we go back at Christmas, New Year's, and old issues somehow find their way at the dinner table or afterwards while we're sitting in the living room, and we're stuck. Again, over and over, year after year, being blamed for the same thing without properly being heard. Without, again, not being given the chance to fully express our side, our feelings, not being heard, not being listened to, not even having any compassion shown to us by our loved ones. That hurts the most. And year after year, this sorrow and sadness builds up inside of us. And as the years pass, this at one point turns into anger. And in many cases, a rageful anger, a very powerful rage. And when it comes out, it does damage. Damages us. We're hurting people that we love. I'm sure there are many areas that we agree. There are many beautiful memories that we're fond of, but we never get a chance to clear the problems. What can we do? A good approach would be to catch, if it's our parents, catch our mom or our dad in a good time. Timing is very important. When they're in a good mood, bring the issue, whatever we want to solve, and put it in front of them and hear them out first. Like, Dad, you thought I was wrong, or you think I'm wrong on this issue with my brother or my sister. Can you please share with me? I'm trying to understand what I did wrong. Why do you think I'm wrong? And really listen to them. Not with a ready answer. Just let them explain it to you. Human beings are very intuitive. So if we already are on a defensive stance, if we already have our answers ready, no matter what they're explaining, if we already have our answers ready that we want to tell them, no matter what explanation they're giving to us, they will feel that. Human beings are very intuitive. So the first step is to time it well. Find them in a good mood. Have enough time to talk it out. And really listen attentively. To listen with your presence. Give them a few affirmative nods. And most important is to remain calm on our behalf, on our side. And when it comes time, with their permission, it's good to ask for permission. People like that, especially parents. Remember the days we had to ask permission when we were kids. So as an adult, if you in a kind and soft demeanor ask their permission, if they would care to hear you out, and again, as calmly as possible, we try to explain. And of course there's a point where they always stopped you, and we approached that point as softly and as calmly as possible. What we need to be careful about is holding our anger at check. This is really the key. Because if we are able to talk about our sorrow, talk about our sadness, that kind of digs underneath the anger. And again, as human beings, anger, once we feel that people are listening to us, once we have the chance that we're being heard, finally, they are listening, these things will soften our anger. And maybe not in that meeting, maybe not the first time, but because we have to get our anger out, if we're able to do it, we can do it during the same discussion. But if not, we can release some of our anger. How do we do that? We do it by making them feel our sadness and our sorrow. And this, over the years, how it has caused this anger in us. Our emotions can switch 180 degrees very quickly, in less than a second. But that goes for us and it goes for them. Like we always hear about these love and hate relationships. There's crazy love. They're madly in love. And then you find out things about your mate, and that beautiful feelings of love turns to rage, raging anger. So the same is possible when we hear that, oh my God, now they understand me. I'm being heard. There is some compassion for me here. And that anger that built up over the years, boy, that pulls the carpet right underneath anger's feet. And all that anger, just like love, how it turns to hate, will turn to love. It will turn to compassion, first to your parents, and then whoever you had that problem with, be it your siblings. We really need to work on these things. None of us are perfect. We have our good sides and we have our bad sides. Because if we don't, the sadness and the sorrow continues to build up. It becomes the picture of our life and turns into this rageful anger. If we prolong this, if we don't work on it, and yes, we should work on ourselves first. I mean, compare having this discussion with anger, without listening. Somebody says something at the table, or somebody said something after dinner, and we bring up the past with anger, without listening, without asking permission. Why not? Let's ask permission. So this is the work. And we need to do this work, because the sad part is, if we don't work on our past, as we all know, we end up one day, or we already have our own family, and the same things will happen in our own family. If we do not solve our issues, if problems keep building up, they get deeper and deeper, and they get more and more dark energy. So we end up repeating what we lived with our parents, with our siblings, in our own family, with our spouse, with our children. And even sadder, as we all know, children will never do what you tell them to do. They will do what they see from you. They will imitate you. They will own what they witness. Some might not. Some are born with deep empathy, compassion, and they will say, they have enough wisdom to say, I'm not going to be like my parents. And they might succeed in having a family where they can talk about their problems, where they can listen to each other, work on each other, help each other. But as psychology books always point out, as our spouses, we always choose what we know, what is familiar to us. We choose a husband that has similar traits to our father, not just to our father, to the issues we had with our father. Or as sons, we choose a wife that is so much like our mother, as that small kid who didn't get the validation, who didn't get the attention or the love from their mother, will choose a spouse because inside of us those problems are still there and they've got no place to go. Emotion is energy, and they seep into every cell in our body, and they reside there just like viruses. And just like when our immune system weakens, the viruses get us sick. And this sorrow, this sadness, will either explode as a rageful anger, or it will make us sick. Now here's the catch. Here's the most amazing part. We can release some of the anger with the work we're doing. But there is, in reality, in practice, in this life, not enough time to discuss everything we repressed or suppressed in our childhood. There's just not enough time. We have jobs, we have all these responsibilities, take kids to school, to ball games. We need time for ourselves, for our body, to go exercise. We need to travel for work. We need to travel for leisure. Parents are also busy. They have their own life. How can we find the time, in reality, to talk about every major issue, every major problem we've had with them? So we time it, we ask permission in a loving way. The energy is very important. Humans can feel your heart rate. They can hear They can feel your heartbeat. So when you approach, especially on sensitive issues like this for them and for you, if we're not calm, if we do not, if it's only on our lips or in our mind, we're using our mind, our thoughts, and just words on our lips, they will feel it. So we need to set the intention that we want peace. And our intention is one of the keys. A peaceful intention will also be our trump card in softening them up. So we do some work to let it out, to solve it. But then there is still, or there are some issues that are so rageful that we're not able to bring it up. And what to do with those? Think of a rocket, a space rocket. Imagine now the thrust that's needed to propel that rocket from Earth through the atmosphere to space. Anger. Any dark emotion has tremendous thrust. And once we are able to soften the issue, when we realize we are receiving some compassion, we are being heard, they are listening to my story, I'm able to finish, I'm not being cut halfway, not even halfway, I'm not being cut off before I get to say even a quarter of what I want to say. They're listening to me. I'm being heard. They are letting me finish. I don't even care if they agree with me. I'm being heard for the first time. I'm able to say my side of the story for the first time. And with that thrust that belonged to your anger will take you through all the darkness to peace. Hey, they might not be peaceful about the whole thing. They might have a little peace. But unless we care for our own emotional, mental, physical, unless we take care of our needs first, we're no good for anyone. So if I've got the chance to use that thrust from my anger to propel me through all the dark energies to my peace, that's a major step and a huge achievement for me. Then I can work on the rest.